Okay. So, Judy, can you introduce yourself and tell us where you're working now?
So, hello everybody. My name is Judy Heumann, and I am originally from Brooklyn, New York. And today I work in Washington, D.C. I am an appointee of President Obama, and I work at the U.S. Department of State. So, for any of you who've ever traveled out of the United States and have had to get a passport, your passport is issued and the State Department is involved. For any of you who've ever traveled overseas, maybe you've been to one of our embassies in a number of countries. I don't know if any of you have ever studied abroad or are thinking of studying abroad, but if you have studied abroad or are thinking of studying abroad, you'd also be involved in one way or another with the State Department. So basically, the Department of State is the federal agency that deals with international related issues. It's one of the main institutions that does that.
And what specifically do you do in the State Department?
So, my job is Special Advisor for International Disability Rights. And that basically means that it's my responsibility to work with the staff in Washington, D.C., at the main State Department, and with our embassies and consulates around the world to help them get a better understanding of the types of human rights violations that disabled people experience in their countries. Many of you may have heard of a law, the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is a unique law in the United States which protects the rights of disabled individuals. And the Americans with Disabilities Act basically is important for a number of reasons, one of which is because our Congress, the House and the Senate, acknowledged in the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act that discrimination does occur in the United States against disabled individuals in the public and private sector. And this law, the Americans with Disabilities Act, is intended to both help enable people to have a better understanding of what they need to be doing to ensure that they're not discriminating. And in the event that an individual believes that they have been discriminated against, enables that individual or other individuals to file a complaint with various agencies, federal agencies, depending on the nature of the complaint, where the government would then get involved in trying to determine whether in fact discrimination had occurred, and if so, the agency would get involved in rectifying the problem. In many countries around the world, there isn't legislation that is as strong as the law in the United States. So my job in part is to help our embassies and consulates reach out within the communities that they are working in to identify disability rights organizations, to talk with those organizations, to disabled people and parents, to learn from them about some of the problems that they may be experiencing due to limited legislation or lack of enforcement or both, and to be able to engage with governments and disability rights organizations and other human rights organizations in those countries to help facilitate a discussion and to help look at ways of uh, collaborating with government and civil society to improve conditions for disabled people, basically to help ensure that disabled people have equal rights, human rights are granted.
Okay. Let's talk about when you were younger. I know that you grew up in a Jewish home. Um, what, what impact did that have on you?
Well, I mean, I think growing up in a Jewish home was important for me, obviously, because I still practice my religion today. It was important to me because I believe Judaism respects the rights of all people. And as a Jew, it's important for me also to be able to speak up on behalf of the rights of people, including disabled individuals. And the religion itself, I think, while Judaism still is working on addressing disabled people as really equal members of our community, I felt comfortable in being able to speak out as I got older about the types of barriers that I feel I've experienced and friends with other disabilities have been experiencing. So Judaism teaches us that it's important to have discussions, to have debates, to listen, be respectful. And so I think all of those components have been important for me, not only in uh, working on being an activist, but also working on helping to improve the lives of all people, including Jewish disabled people.
When you were younger, what types of barriers did you face because of your disability?
Well, I mean, I think barriers that I faced when I was growing up were similar to barriers that people face today. In part, there's the typical physical barriers. When I was growing up, I grew up, as I said, in Brooklyn, and we went to a small synagogue that was up 2 flights of steps. And so I had to be carried up and down those flights of steps. And then at one point, they made some renovations to this small synagogue, and the shul was on the first floor. But still, there was a step to get in, and the bathroom wasn't accessible because it was down steps. So physical accessibility had been an issue. More and more synagogues today are physically accessible. I go to a large conservative shul now in Washington, D.C., and I would say that it's 90% accessible. Bathrooms are good. There's ramp into the building. There's access to the bima. I can daven with other people. I can participate in the religious service. I can read from Torah. Not yet as perfectly as I'd like to be able to because of the fact that the table that the scroll is on is currently being renovated, but so that it'll be more accessible for those of us in wheelchairs. But I think the biggest issue is the acceptance of disabled people as equal members of the Jewish community within our religious life. There's work being done in that regard too. I'm chairman or chairperson of a committee at our synagogue called the Inclusion Committee, and we are involved in many activities, including in February we hold an event during the National Jewish Disability Awareness Month. Every year we have a speaker with a different type of a disability, and then after Kiddush we have a panel with 4 or 5 people who are intergenerational and have different types of disabilities, both hidden and visible disabilities. And I think we find that to be very important. The Ruderman Foundation, which is based in Boston, Massachusetts, has put out some grants to assist synagogues in becoming more inclusive. And Addis was one of the synagogues that was awarded a grant. So we're more proactively working on addressing these issues. But I want to say that I think it's particularly important that younger people are involved in helping to ensure that disabled people are welcome within the religious community. And I think for younger people, whatever it is that you like when you're participating, whether it's studying for your bar mitzvah or your bat mitzvah or activities that you're involved with other Jewish youth or um, whatever role you think is important, it's to also be cognizant of the fact that there are other youth who may have learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, mental health disabilities, sensory disabilities, physical disabilities, and that you should be a part of helping to uh, ensure that inclusion is more an active part of both the synagogue you're involved with today and the religious life that hopefully you'll be involved with over the future. You're in a unique situation because you are in a generation where laws like, as I was mentioning earlier, the Americans with Disabilities Act is in place, uh, granting uh, rights to disabled individuals that were different than what I experienced when I was growing up. So I very much look to the younger generations today as really being leaders, spokespersons, speaking out against bullying, and really uh, being seen as a role model in your communities, both within the synagogue, but equally important in your day to day lives. So as you move through high school and on to university and then into adulthood, you have a responsibility to really help ensure that we treat all people respectfully, whether they're Jewish or not, and whether they have disabilities or not. But we shouldn't be a part of allowing people who need our support and respect. We need to be very active players in ensuring that happens.
Why did you think it's so important for us to be inclusive?
Well, I mean, I think when we're growing up, usually we're participating in our synagogues because our parents want us to do that. And I see participation in religious life, coming to synagogue, doing various activities, as a way of learning how to um, be a part not just of the Jewish community, but of society overall. Inclusion means that we're welcoming all people. And so we want, as we're growing up and getting older, to really value all life. And whether a person has a disability or not, whether they're Jewish or Muslim or Christian or Hindu or whatever, we should be respecting all of those people and their differences and working on an inclusive society in general, whether it's in school or at the workplace or in our community. But in our synagogues, I think it's a place where frequently we feel like there are greater opportunities for more discussion, to do things in a way that we maybe can't do every day. And I think inclusion is really ultimately what we're about, ensuring that no person is left behind. As I've been saying, that we're respectful of all people. And in inclusion, we're talking about meaningful engagement. So learning how to ensure that people who may participate in a way different than we as individuals is important, just to show there are lots of different ways of getting to the same conclusion. Um, I think the more inclusive our society is, the more harmonious our society also becomes. And so, as Jews, I think it is our responsibility to help ensure that we are um, following Tikkun Olam, that we are trying to make this world a better place within our individual families, our religious institutions, our schools, our recreational areas, um, our employment, and our adulthood. So I think inclusion is really, it's a phrase that we use right now because people aren't being included, but hopefully in the future it's a word that really won't need to be utilized anymore, because we will understand the value of all people and what we need to do to ensure that all are included.
Thank you, Jenny. Is there anything else you want to add or say before we go?
I think it's important, and now we're talking about Jewish life, so I think it's important that in our synagogues we also look for opportunities to have discussions around diversity. Um, People who are uh, gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender, people who come from different racial backgrounds, people who've become Jews of choice, people who have disabilities. There's a lot of diversity within our religious institutions. And I think one of the values of Judaism is our ability to try to raise questions and have discussions, read about things, look at films about different issues, have discussions with people who can also be involved in helping to provide information. In Oakland, there are a lot of really great opportunities, and I think it would be valuable for younger people to uh, maybe ask to see, or you may know of videos or books that you think are particularly good to watch or to read, and to really have some more robust discussions to answer questions about difference that we don't necessarily understand. We shouldn't be embarrassed about asking questions that are respectfully raised in order to help inform ourselves so that we can be more responsible members of our communities.
Thank you, Jenny, for taking the time to be with us for our February Disability Awareness Month.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank both Neil and Denise, and David, and all of you who are watching this, for inviting me to come and spend a few minutes with you. I'd love to be there in person, but I'm in Washington, D.C., so that's not really possible at the moment. Hope to meet with you sometime in the future, and I really look forward to learning more about the good work you're all doing. And keep your Judaism strong within your heart.